So the biggest problem with my videos is that I don't teach songs. So I thought this week I'd talk about why I don't, why you should learn them, how you should learn them, and how I go about learning them as well. Now, if we were working one-to-one, I'd make songs the centre of everything that we do. All of the techniques, all of the scales would be focused around a song or a tune or a piece of music. And that would set the context to everything that I do. But when I do videos on YouTube, I don't do any of that. And there's a good reason for that as well. You see, when I first started putting YouTube videos together, one thing that I was really concerned about was copyright, the whole idea of copyright, copyright strikes. I mean, I knew about fair use and I knew about educational videos being fair use, but there is just this huge vague area, this grey area, and it seems to have got worse as well with YouTube. So I just don't see any way that I really should be, or I really could start putting real songs into the videos that I'm producing, because, you know, I see great channels with videos being taken down all the time, which is a huge shame. Or channels getting strikes because of this as well. And to be honest with you, I do have a problem with the people who are doing this as well, the copyright owners who are issuing these strikes onto educational channels. You see, there's no musician that I'm aware of that hasn't developed their craft by looking backwards at old songs, learning how to play old songs, old tunes, and then using that to develop themselves forward. So by doing this, you're effectively stopping the next generation of musicians developing, which is a huge shame. So why should you learn them? Well, your ultimate goal as a musician is to make music. And exercises without context is pretty much sports. So, you know, learning to play or showing someone how fast you can play a scale is a bit like showing them how many push-ups you can do. It's kind of pointless. But using a scale in context, being able to use that in context, can be jaw-dropping if you use it in the right way in the music that you're playing, and that's the difference. But it's much more than that. You see, when you commit to learn the entire song, not just the interesting bit, not just the fiddly bit, you gain a whole insight into the music that you may never have got otherwise. And that can take you into a completely new area. You know, you discover new novel things just in the harmonic structure of the song. But also you identify common themes as well, common approaches, and they allow you to develop a vocabulary for the instrument that sit across multiple songs, which accelerate the way, the speed that you learn other songs as well. And they also give you the vocabulary to play music by ear as well. You start hearing these common themes and you can start just bringing them out as well. So you can play pieces of music by ear that you've never learnt before, and that's a really interesting and useful skill as well. There's an interesting little thought experiment that I like to challenge people with, and that's this. If you were at a party and someone just gave you a guitar out of the blue and asked you to play something, would you be able to play something? Would you have something that you could actually play then and there to demonstrate the fact that you were a guitarist? And it's an interesting situation. So many musicians actually can't do that, which is a real shame. They sit there embarrassed, just mind blank, unable to play a single thing, even though they have all of this technique, even though they have all of these skills. Whereas with a little bit of thought and a little bit of effort, you can build a simple vocabulary, a simple repertoire of music that you can just bring out into those situations. And suddenly what is an embarrassing situation suddenly turns into something that's really quite fun. So how should you learn them then? Well, I think you should make music, you should make learning songs, learning real pieces of music a priority in your practice sessions. And like I say, if you start to think about techniques in the context of the music that you're going to use them in, then that can really start to help as well. There's nothing wrong with using an exercise, there's nothing wrong with learning a technique, but you always need to start to bring it back to some real music. And the other thing, as I say, is you should commit to learning the entire song as well. I find that's really useful. Now, there are two approaches to learning music that I use. And they are learning note for note, trying to be as accurate as I can be with the music that I'm learning. And then there is learning my own particular version of that song, or being able to play the song in my way, using my techniques, using my licks and riffs. And there are good reasons for doing both as well. So if you're learning note for note, what you're doing is you're building your vocabulary, you're exposing yourself to new ideas, to new ways of playing a piece of music that you wouldn't normally think of yourself. You're developing, you're learning new licks and riffs, which is a really powerful thing to do, and it gives you that vocabulary that you can take in other directions. If you create your own version of a piece of music, what you're trying to do is you're trying to sound as authentic to that piece of music as you can be, but not necessarily using the same licks, the same ideas, the same musical lines as the original player would do. And what that does is that exercises your vocabulary, your existing vocabulary. You find ways of using that in the new context, in the context of the new song that you're working with. So it's a great way of developing your own voice. That's one of the things I find really useful from doing this. The other thing is that it spots holes in your techniques, or it spots holes in your vocabulary as well. If you find that there's a song or a piece of music that you want to play and you don't have the chops to be able to really bring it out, then that's an area that you need to work on. And so it's a really useful way of finding those areas and allowing you to drill them and finding ways of creating your voice in these new contexts as well. So for me personally, I play a lot of songs. I'm actually active in 2 bands at the moment, and both of those bands have maybe 60 songs, a working set of around 60 songs that we can draw on. So that's around 120 songs. And then I'm in the process of setting a 3rd one up right now. So that's going to give me an even broader vocabulary of working songs that I'll use in gigs. In terms of how I approach learning new songs, I tend to not learn them note for note these days. And the main reason for that is that from a technique point of view, I have a pretty unorthodox style. If you've checked out my channel, if you've checked out some of my fingerstyle techniques, you'll see that my approach to playing the guitar is not necessarily the same as everyone else's. And so what I enjoyed doing is finding new ways of applying my technique to different songs in different contexts, and that's what I enjoy doing these days. So I tend not to do the note for note stuff. So anyway, hopefully that's given you some context as to why I make the videos that I make, and really how I think you should approach them as well. Yes, there are a lot of exercises and ideas that I put forward in my videos, but I'm hoping that you guys are actually thinking about how you apply this in the music that you're making, and you're not just approaching them from the point of view of using them as an exercise. So anyway, I hope that helps, and we'll chat next time. Goodbye.